Welcome to The Breadwinners. We're back for season 5 and taking your questions about work, life, and everything in between. I'm Jennifer Owens. I served as editorial director of Working Mother Media and founded the Working Mother Research Institute.
And I'm Rachael Ellison. I'm an executive coach and management consultant who works with companies big and small to design workplace policies that work for all employees. There's nothing we like more than talking about work-life strategies, but we know that in the real world, such questions can be very personal and a little prickly. In this season of The Breadwinners, we tackle them all.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Just sitting in front of a window, listening to car alarms. That's how it's going here. So
I'm watching suburban Boston. I'm just watching these.
Just watching it pass by. Yeah.
Trees, yeah.
Beautiful thing. So, well, we have a question for us today. Are you ready? Do you have your thinking cap tightly in place?
Yes.
All
it's
right.
great. Go for it.
Well, as we record this, the episode that is out now, there is a time machine, folks. I hate to admit it, but there is. Actually, I don't hate to admit it. We record these a little earlier, so we make sure we always have an episode.
Yes.
I mean, come on. People know. You're savvy. The episode that's out this week is talking about living with job layoff anxiety. And so, you have the layoff, it's coming. I worry it happens. And then you're going into the job hunt and there's leads ghost you, or I've never had this happen, but rescinded offers are like in the mix now. That's super awful. But on this week, we're on the other side. We have a breadwinner with competing job offers. And so here we go. This is very exciting. I have dreamed of this day, so may I one day be this breadwinner. So here we go. Hello, breadwinners. For maybe the first time in my career, I have 2 competing job offers to consider. Base compensation is nearly the same for both, so the differences lie in the job descriptions, in the companies, and what culture I can sense from my interviews. One opportunity is with a fast-growing startup that will want me to build from scratch. The other is with a global company where I'll be much lower on the ladder, but with a better defined role working with an established team. Can you help me consider my options? What factors should I be considering that I can look out for or ask about before I commit to either one? I still have time and I don't want to make the wrong choice. What do you think about that? Let's congratulate this.
Yes.
Yay.
Breadwinner.
Yes.
It's great to have these different options and to think about the different factors. So let's recap. So she's got this person has 2 different offers. One big corporate.
Yeah. One being startup.
Yeah.
One being startup. Since it's a startup, I'm going to assume, having worked at startups, there's not a lot there. It's kind of hurly-burly, but which can be a con unless you really love that kind of energy, but you kind of get to be, you're being brought in to build something that doesn't exist. That's what startups are all about.
Well,
and then the corporate one, there's a corporation, I'm sure, so-and-so does this part, you do that part kind of thinking.
So, I mean, one of the pieces that would be really important for us to know, and I'm guessing she didn't write this in her letter, or they did not.
I'm keeping everything from you. No, I don't have it.
Is the role that she, is excited about playing, right?
Yeah.
So, because I think, as usual, when someone writes in with a question, I have questions.
You have so many clarifying questions to ask. Yes.
Which is so helpful because they're not here. But what I would ask them is to think about exactly what you just said, which is, do you want to be at the early stage, new idea, trial and error, like hurry up and wait and see if it works kind of startup space, which to some extent all startup spaces are? Or do you want to be in an environment where there's a certain status quo,
mm-hmm.
there is less potentially, your impact around, if you would like to be in that kind of startup early stage new idea space, could be inhibited in different ways by the
Right.
way, by the company culture and what fit and doesn't fit. So I would really want to know more about that, because I think that's one piece of it. I also think that I was actually coaching someone who is an entrepreneur who was looking to go internal to a more established company
Yeah.
and was applying to jobs and kind of like applying, I wouldn't say willy nilly, but definitely just trying to get his
Just
name
trying to get
out
a job.
there.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
I
Is
have
that,
been there.
yeah. I mean, but the question is, I've been there too, right?
Yeah.
So, like, having been an entrepreneur and then having gone inside an organization for 5 years, I think that what I learned about myself was really that piece around innovation and around flexibility and around kind of the startup experimentation
Yeah.
mentality. And that, for me, not having that or being in an environment where that really wasn't the case, even though I was made very aware of it, was hard to take ultimately. And so thinking about the role of, first of all, do you like being in that initial phase of building something? A, right? Because if you do, what do you like about that? What gives you the satisfaction? Is it trying out new ideas and being the architect of new ideas? Or is it just because that might be something that you have more flexibility to do in a startup environment than you have
Right.
in in a big enterprise? Is it that, where are you going to want to be heard?
Hmm.
Where are you going to want to where are you going to want to say something? Where are you going to want to be heard? Like, what
Right.
authority do you want in the execution of what you're building? I think, and this person could be a software programmer or an accountant, which would have very different
Yeah.
roles in the startup space. But I think there's a certain,
There's just no job security either. I'd like to say that, you
yeah,
think it's the hurly burly is a little uncertain at a startup or whatever. I'm here to tell. There's,
yeah,
like, yeah, of all this discussion, what can you build? What can you learn? What kind of voice do you want to have? Because, yeah, you'll be heard much louder at a startup, but you may have to speak really loud to get them to pay attention. But at a corporation, you can be heard, but you'll have to say it 60 times and you
yeah.
have to speak very resolutely but calmly if you're willing to do that
But you're saying there's no job security at the startup, or there's no job security anywhere?
anywhere.
Oh, no, I agree.
So if you think like the corporation, as someone who just worked at a corporation and got laid off, and it's my fourth time getting laid off, twice at startups, once at established, and now once at a super big corporation. Eh. And I don't even say that like, well, look at me, but I'm saying it can happen anywhere. So if the compensation is the same, basically the current, and then there's like, you look at the larger compensation factors like, is there equity involved? Are there bonuses involved? What's the health care? Are they going to help with health care? Because some startups don't. One of my startups had no health care. They just didn't pay for it.
Wow.
So there is the thought of looking at all compensation factors beyond just salary in your hand. But if that seems pretty comparable, I would take job security over in that, like it's comparable for both. I guess what I'm saying. Put it in the it's comparable bucket versus the differentiation that you could be looking at.
Yeah. I think it is really about being able to walk into an enterprise where there are more, you know, you walk into a new job, you want to make a good impression. There's lots of different factors, but you do need to be able to say in that culture, I'm out. Like I'm off. It is
Yeah. Well,
6:30.
and that's what the question I have for you. Is there a way to suss that out? I mean, it's so hard. I was speaking to a recruiter recently and he was asking me, what are you looking for? What makes a job attractive to you? And certainly compensation is a big factor, but it boils down to respect. And so it's respect for the work that I do, that you value what I'm doing. Cause I have been places where they don't really value the work product.
Right.
Oddly, it seems weird to say, but that's happened.
Yeah.
And part and parcel, not always the same, but also respect for the individuals, myself or my teams or the like. I have worked at places where the culture is highly disrespectful.
Yeah.
And but I said, I realize that it's really hard to know that that's the case anyplace. And so my question, like, is there any way to suss that out before you jump in, before they put a ring on it?
It's
And
interesting.
the answer is no.
No, I think there's different things, right? I think there's the respect question
Yeah.
and there's the boundaries question. Those are linked questions, but they are not the same question. Do you know what I'm saying? I think that
Right. That is exactly. I completely agree that sometimes they can respect the work, or at least give cursory respect to the work, and still not respect their workforce. They can be together. They can also be apart.
right, right. Yeah. I mean, I think what you want to know is, does the workplace value your well-being?
Oh, that's interesting.
Because if they value, I was reading this article, where was it? There have been researchers who've been looking at the difference between thriving and overall well-being,
Hmm.
right? And I think thriving requires their paper actually goes into like, this is what thriving is and this is what it isn't, and it says it's not mental health and well-being, but and they talk about what it is, what it's not. It's not flow, it's not all those things, but it is being encouraged to learn and create and grow in a way that I
Yeah.
do think requires a certain level of respect, because it's about empowerment
Hmm.
and it's about trust of a certain level. And I think well-being is different than that. I think if an organization values your well-being, really it's about, ask the question, what additional employee support programs do you have? What services do you have and what's the utilization?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that was always my best company's framework was, what's offered, who has access, and what's the usage, right? Because you jump right ahead because isn't that always, we know it's the key. You can offer everything, but if you're not allowed to use it, really, if the
Right.
culture says
So
no, right?
I think you want to
Can
try
you
to,
ask that when you're negotiating? Because nowadays it seems to me we're dealing a lot more with recruiters, or maybe I am more.
yeah,
I think the world of job, the applicant tracking systems are so clunky and it's all keyword driven, that it comes down to needing recruiters to kind of facilitate the thing. That's been my experience then, like 10 years ago. So hopefully you have someone you can talk to that's not the hiring manager, or maybe in the startup it is the hiring manager, to talk to about these things. But do you think it's
yeah.
appropriate, I mean, to ask, I guess? Oh,
I don't know. I think you're right. I don't know if you'll get the answer. You
yeah.
may not. But I do think trying to, for me, it's less important that you, like, the first line of defense, or the first thing that you really should do is figure out, are these people burning out or not? Like, and
Yeah.
people that you're going to be working with. And there are lots of different ways to see that. But I think we tend to go into jobs thinking about, are they excited about what they're working on? And that's all well and good, but it
Yeah.
actually only matters if you're excited about it. And then the collegiality and the collaboration, like, yes, that's important. But are these people like doing okay.
Yeah.
My brother, who I love referring to, I'm
He
90
truly
now.
is the lodestar of our
He,
podcast.
he has never listened to this. If you've listened to this,
So we can talk smack about him.
we can
Got it.
totally talk smack. He went to an interview once, and it was he was much earlier in his career, and he was hoping for, this was where he thought he was going to go in his industry, to this
Mhm.
kind of place and this kind of specialization. And he went into somebody's office, and the guy looked like he hadn't slept in like 2 weeks. And
Oh,
he was putting in an order for dinner. And he was like, I can't remember the last time I ate dinner at my apartment. It was just like,
yeah, yeah.
and this guy, and he was like, if you work here, he started giving my brother like this advice.
You're right.
Like,
Here's how to survive. This is what life will be like. Yeah.
what's interesting is I don't think that my brother ended up at that point in his career having that different of an experience in terms of expectations of work time that other people did. But I do think, from what I can gather, that the employer that he got and that he's been with this entire time, for like the 15 years since he's graduated, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
been is he's well. Like, they support his well-being.
Yeah.
And there's something about his company that I think that's pretty consistent. And I think, it's just sort of a little
Yeah.
tale.
That's one thing you could see are at least the performative approaches to well-being. Like at least, like if there's nothing there, then, like at least you could see that there are things you could access. There's also the thought of could you find anyone who works there? Because that was a gift for your brother, is to actually talk to someone who works there to get a little insight. That's a good step that I think everyone should take. And I say that as someone who never takes it, because I'm always the one who's so excited, like, oh, I could do, X, Y, and Z at this company. I'm going to do it all. And just like
Right.
runs in blindly time and time again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think what we learned, we were just talking about this, like, and hopefully we'll talk more about like how do you survive the pandemic? How do you survive the post-pandemic? What
Yeah.
have we, I think we have learned, I think we've all, I've had people roll their eyes at this comment, but I'm just going to say it anyway. We've gone through a major trauma,
Yeah.
all of us collectively. There is an impact of trauma. And we think about like big T, little t trauma. We think about trauma as wars and horrible events,
Yeah.
which is big T.
Physical. Right. Or, well, and it was physical. I don't know. Yeah. Obviously, you can already hear me. I'm not rolling my eyes, but I'm like, but no, you're right.
But
You're right.
no, the thing is, it kind of doesn't matter. If you look at some of the research that's out there on something called polyvagal theory, right? Which is, it doesn't matter what you call it, but a common response to trauma is this kind of compromised coping around calming yourself down. And it kind of has shifted us collectively.
It's so hard. It's so much harder for me to calm down than it was
Yeah.
pre-pandemic. Yes.
It is. And we're looking at that. And so I think we take for granted, or at least, as speaking for myself, I think I took for granted something that at different points in my career, maybe it was because I was younger, maybe it was because it was pre-pandemic, who the heck knows?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a sense like, oh, I can just kind of battle my way through this crazy. Everything is heightened. And the reason why it's heightened, and you can look at Nicole LaPera writes about this, all of the polyvagal theory folks, bunch of people we can link to, and we have a visual we can link to, but it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn thing that we're all just defaulting to all the time.
Mm.
We do not have the space and peace to live in. We've been under chronic stress. Chronic stress is trauma. the trauma relates to how reactive we are. So my point, which I'm making in a very long way, is to second guess, to think, or to be overconfident in your ability to kind of just ride the waves of like really stressful situations at work. There is a cost to making a decision that you think is about the money when you are going to, there will be a health cost if you walk into a situation that's not,
That is true, right?
And I think we think like, okay, yeah, but that's like not the cost, but like I have seen firsthand, secondhand, third, it is absolutely a cost. And we are now in a place where we can't really.
It's like we don't have any spare change when it comes to our wellness.
Yeah.
There's no fungibility because I feel it. I totally, you're saying this and I'm just like, yes, this is because I still am the queen of muscling through, but I'm not all the time and I'm not. And I feel and then to draw it back to the question, if you're starting to feel this about yourself and realize that you can't just muscle through, then you don't want to get stymied on making a decision. You now have a choice, but that can almost be terrible because if you just had one job offer and you need a job and you take the job, you don't have that. And so now I can see even being a little bit more like, yeah, but which one? What about my wellness? What about, though to which I say very tactically, no job is a forever job. I mean, am I just too Gen X and job instability-itis person, but also kind of don't overthink it? I don't know. Wait, if you think I'm wrong about it. Like, I think you can get another job. If it turns out it wasn't a fit, I guess, is also,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard. I just think, and I can't make this choice for everyone, and I might use my own words at some point, but I do think that making that when your body is telling you it's going to be rough for me, but I got to do it. My mind says I got to do it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't entirely trust that like that's all going to come out in the wash. Like you have to acknowledge when something in your gut tells you that it's
it's going to be too expensive to your well-being. I don't know why it's all currency minded. It's compensation, but your wellness compensation. Can we do that in addition to anything else? And seriously, compensation is super important. Never look down. But, as my lovely mother, who probably is listening to this, would say, don't take the job for the money. So, if you look at the whole thing and you're like, oh, but there's equity and there's, whatever beyond the base salary, don't just take the job for the money. It never works out. It just doesn't. If your body's saying no, but your pocketbook is saying yes. Yeah. No, there's, and then, if it's a wrong one, don't stay. Go find another job.
Exactly. I think that's the piece. Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So what's our recap? I personally, listening to this is to think of this as what's the wellness compensation here? How is that being taken care of? How much am I going to have to spend on this? What can you see that will kind of help you figure out your budget in that regard?
Yeah. I think that's really the key.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about, what is involved in the wellness, what do you need to think about?
Yeah.
What is sticking out the most? And we were just talking about my favorite, which I can't believe we haven't spoken about before, but the Surgeon General's framework for workplace mental health and well-being, right? Yeah. So, it talks about as these 5 different kind of areas that help people focus on well-being at work, or help organizations think about well-being and then what that looks like. And it's certainly it's basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Right?
But for the workplace. Yeah. Like
the workplace. So are you, do you have safety in this job? How much safety do you need? How do you balance that with a sense of connection and community, with autonomy and flexibility, with meaning in your work and growth in your work, right? But the money part comes in at the safety level. And I think there needs to be weighing of that and how that's going to relate to all the other parts. So
I love it.
yeah, hang in there. So think about the bottom of the pyramid, then think about what matters to you at work. Where do you find the most meaning? Is it building at the early stages or not? Right? Just ask yourself these questions so that you can say to yourself, even if it doesn't work out, I did not come from a place of desperation.
Right.
Indecision. I came from a place of strength.
I love it. Thank you, Rachael.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Breadwinners. Do you have a sticky work-life question for us? Send it our way at thebreadwinnerspod@gmail.com. We're here to help.
And please take a moment to rate and review our show. It really helps. And of course, join us on Facebook or Instagram at The Breadwinners Podcast. And until next time, keep hustling.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.